Alright, I'm actually filming this a second time because the first time I filmed it, everything was blurry. For some reason, the camera didn't autofocus. So, we're going to approach growth. How do we grow as preppers? And so, there's two keywords really we're going to talk about here. Number one is plan. I need to lay out a plan, and that involves where am I now and where do I want to be. So, we're going to do our risk assessment, right? We're going to lay out all the different things that we're concerned about. What's the chance of them happening? What's the potential severity? In fact, if you go on our Patreon and if you go on our website, we've got systems of and worksheets and whatnot on how to tackle this, right? This is how we train people. So you follow that. That'll give you a pretty good risk ranking system. And so you lay out a short term and a long term plan. You don't want to start tackling these long term issues before you have your short term problems figured out, right? So you start with the low hanging fruit and you move your way up. So, for example, if you don't even have jumper cables on your car, you don't need to be trying to do your bug out vehicle build. You need to be prepared for some of the basic stuff first. Um, and so, again, keyword is plan. You have to know where you are and where you want to be. Otherwise, you're like a ship without a rudder. You start just buying things without really having understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. And I've seen people do this, and you end up wasting a lot of time and money. Maybe you realize that you're kind of running in circles. That can be very discouraging. And I've seen people just give up because they're expending a lot of energy. They don't really know where they're going, so they can't even tell if they're going there, if they're making progress, and it's just very disheartening. And then the second keyword, which will really expand on this, is balance. Right. So number one, plan. Number two, balance. And what does that mean? Well, everything needs to be improved together. So we've talked about concentric circles before. So let's say, for the sake of argument, we're just going to narrow everything down to four categories: food, water, medical, and tactical. Let's say, right? And let's narrow down our measures of progress down to just three markers: 3 days, 3 months, 3 years. Right? Just for the sake of illustration. Well, if my food and water medical are, I go from 3 days to 3 months, but my tactical is still at zero, and I want to bring my food and water up to 3 years. Um, I need to make sure I bring up the tactical up with everything else. I don't want to just leave that behind. So my food and water medical tactical 3 days, and then I bring everything up to 3 months, and then I bring everything up at 3 years, and I just start. And it doesn't have to be all at once. For a while I'll work on my food, and when my food's up where it needs to the next marker, the next level, then I focus on the water, and then I focus on the medical, then I focus on tactical. Another good example would be just within the tactical world. If I've got a gun, I've got ammo. Let's say my gear goes up to the 3 month marker or whatever marker you want to use, and I want to spend a bunch more money on more ammo, more armor, something like that, and I have no training. Well, you probably should get some training, right? So instead of spending that money on a few thousand rounds of ammo, you should go take a training class or take multiple classes, become proficient, understand small unit tactics, so you can more effectively use your equipment. Another good example would be night vision. So instead of maybe spending $3,000 or $4,000 on night vision, let's say you've got your basic gear and you got some night vision, but you don't have any real training, or your family doesn't have any gear, or you don't actually have a group or anything like that. So you want to bring your gear up to such and such level, but maybe your training and skills are down here. Well, instead of spending $3,000 on another piece of night vision, you probably should be spending that money on training to bring your skill set up. Um, Another good example would be medical. So if I spend all this money on medical gear and I've got a year's worth of medical supplies, I've got trauma gear, and I've got spare bandages, and I've got all this medicine and antibiotics, but you don't have actual training like trauma, stop the bleed is it's good stuff. I don't know how to use a tourniquet. But also, more importantly, remember we talked about starting small and going up. If you don't know how to do CPR and chest compressions and basic first aid, you need to fix that. You need to go back and get that training. The trauma training is really popular, and it should be, and it's stuff that we all need. But we talked about the risk ranking earlier in the video. You're a lot more likely to need that CPR. You're a lot more likely to need to understand how to do chest compressions and basic first aid. You need to go take that training. There's no point in spending all this money, let's say, and going from let's go back to our original markers, the three day, what did I say, 3 day, 3 month, 3 year. Let's say I'm at the 3 month mark and I want to go to the 3 year mark, but I have no training. Well, I need to stop instead of spending all that money on additional gear, I need to go get the training. So it is a balance between the gear and the training, bringing everything up together. A rising tide lifts all ships. So again, let's say everything's at the 3 week mark, and I got my food and my water, and I've got my medical and my comms gear. Well, I start at one end, I work my way down the list, and then we start at the beginning again. So everything's at this level, and then I bring everything up at this level. And I'm constantly reassessing stuff. There's going to be events that change your priorities. That's fine. So you might be in the middle of procuring food, and something happens, and you say, okay, I need to switch real quick because this gap that I know I have, because you're always going to have gaps, so you should understand what they are. Um, Events that are happening around me make this gap a lot more critical. Okay, that's fine. And another example of how to approach this would be like water. Um, I'm instead of buying a big Berkey water filter or a rainwater catchment system off the top or to start off with, you go to your sporting goods store and you get water purification tablets, or you get a Sawyer Mini, and then maybe eventually you get a Katadyn Hiker Pro pump water filter. And then maybe with water storage, you start with water bottles, and then you get 5 gallon water jugs, and then you get aqua bricks, and you start slowly building your system to be more and more and more capable. And then eventually you get a rainwater catchment system. Some people are going to have the resources to jump fast, very quick. Most people are not. And so again, what I've seen, for example, I've seen a lot of advice on new preppers. What should I get? Go get a big Berkey. You're giving new people this advice, and you're asking them to spend a bunch of money off the bat, and they don't even know where they're going. That's going to cause problems. And I've seen people get discouraged, and I've seen them quit. And that's what happens because they don't have a plan, they don't have a map, they don't know where they're going, and they don't know why. So start small. Like I said earlier, develop a plan, know where you're going, know where you're at, develop a balanced plan, baby steps, okay? A balanced plan, a dotted line to get from here to here. And as I go, I'm constantly reassessing everything I've got, and I don't leave anything behind. No man left behind. I don't spend all my resources in one area so much that I leave some other parts completely unprotected, completely unprepared. Through the history of strategic prepper, with everything that's been happening in the last few years, we have been able to write everything out relatively easily. There hasn't been anything that's really affected us, and that's because of our balanced approach. And it allows us to call an audible and make changes relatively easily. You're not going to always be ready for everything. You're going to have to watch what's going on around the world, evaluate it, and then change your plans. But that's part of the approach to growth. This is how we grow. It's that feedback loop that you're always giving yourself. Plan, do, check, act. Right? A lot of you guys in management know and heard of that. Plan, do, check, act. That's what you're going to be doing all the time. So really just a quick video. It's not complicated. I just want to put that video out there. How do we grow? This is a constant process for everybody. It's going to be forever, really. That's how it works. So let me know, comments below, what you thought. If you got any personal stories of where this has happened or has not happened and it should have happened. I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the comments. Stay safe, stay prepared.